We will call the meeting to order. And Mr. Moore, if you wouldn't mind doing the prayer for us.
So I shoot my mouth off and then I get
Right.
and the pledge as well.
Yes.
Attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now the prayer. Oh, very good. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time together. We thank you for the opportunities you continue to just shower down on this community. Help us be good stewards of those opportunities and to reach out in a way that benefits you, brings glory to you. In your heavenly name we pray. Amen.
Okay, our second item on the agenda is discussion and possible action regarding EDTA entering into a memorandum of agreement with Pryor Main Street. This is a similar agreement to what you have seen before. We looked at it the first time 2 meetings ago. The changes from the previous time we looked at it, this has all been emailed out to all of the committee members. It is changing the grant writing payment from a percentage base to a dollar amount, $100 for each 10,000 in completed grant applications.
Not in grant monies received.
Not in grant monies received.
Applications completed.
And then 500 for each 10,000 in grants awarded.
500 for each
10,000.
So $600 for 10,000.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Assuming that all of those are awarded,
Yeah,
but we
sure.
will make that assumption.
Of course.
And it will be paid in a lump sum on an annual basis, calculated by adding up all of the grants. In exchange, Main Street will work with us on data gathering, community development reporting, and oversight of the Main Street corridor projects. They will help administer an EDTA loan and grant program. And in exchange for those items, in addition to the grant writing, Main Street will, or EDTA will compensate them for those services, an initial retainer in the amount of $25,000 and an annual fee in the amount of $60,000 to be paid monthly to Main Street in equal installments of $5,000 per month. Annually, we will revisit this, and Main Street does have reporting requirements. The first term of this will be from the time of approval until June 30th of 2023, so that we can coincide it with the fiscal year. In addition, EDTA will be requesting from City Council $55,000, which is the next agenda item. But the funding for the memorandum of agreement would come from Fund 68, which is the sales tax for the Main Street corridor. So if we could have any discussion or.
Is the 25,000 retainer included in the first 60,000?
No, sir.
That's separate. So
That's
we're
separate.
talking 85,000.
85.
I just had a couple of questions. The
Okay.
lump sum payment, that's gonna be at the end of the year,
Yes,
is that right?
yes, sir.
So at the conclusion of each year, the agreement's in effect, we just make that calculation, so it might be paid after the year was terminated.
Correct.
Okay, all right. So I'd probably just put something in here to clarify
Okay.
that. Also, the first year of the agreement, since it's a partial year, do we prorate that 60? So it'd be prorated?
Yes.
Okay. And
No proration of the retainer.
No.
those were the questions I had. Thanks.
My understanding is this is coming from the sales tax money, right?
Yes,
And so it's also my understanding this is all would be subject to the city council looking at how it will be spent and giving approval of those sales tax monies being paid in accordance with this.
It'd have to be.
You
Yes.
have to be. So I mean, that's all part of this. We may say, this is what we want to do, but if the city council says, we don't think you can use the sales tax that way, this doesn't happen. And my request would be, again, I understand it's going to come before council. I still recommend getting the written opinions from the bond council and Mr. Coker, if you can. And that somehow then, if the city does approve the spending of these monies that way, that somehow there's a place on them for just to sign off on this, giving the okay, that meets their approval as how those monies can be spent.
And I don't know that, is all of the money gonna come from Fund 68?
So, that's something I wanted to point out after Fred's comment. So, funding for the memorandum of agreement. The first item is, this agreement is subject to securing funds from the city of Pryor Creek on an annual basis. The funding is anticipated to come from Fund 68, but is not limited to only those funds. That does allow some flexibility with the trust to, if we have other sources of revenue, to use those to fund this memorandum.
Some are in part.
Some or in
whole.
part.
Yeah,
It doesn't lock us into, with this agreement, does not lock us into only using Fund 68. That's right now where our primary funding would come from for this, but that's not the only funding source we have. Part of what Jenny will be doing, or Main Street will be doing, is applying for grants. Some of those will be truly on behalf of EDTA to get additional funds in, which could increase our ability to help fund them in addition to the loan programs and the grant programs.
I mean, I could be wrong, but the monies that have now been transferred to the trust did not come from Fund 68, did they?
That's correct.
They did not.
They're just general revenue.
They were budgeted from the general fund to support the EDTA.
They came from the general fund, they came from the sale of
Sell of
properties.
properties.
You're right, yeah.
So, but my point is, and that may be, and I don't have any argument with that, but unless we have a breakdown to say that the sales tax will only be used for this specific part of the memorandum, probably need to have the city council approve all of this, just so we have it covered, because we don't know what part will be used from the general fund and what part will be coming from the sales tax, unless you want to break that down in here. Otherwise, so, I mean, to answer it all, I still think they need to give their stamp of approval. If they say no, well, then we readdress it to see what we can do with our other monies. It would not be as extensive as this, but.
I agree, you gotta have good accounting.
But Darla can track that money. She knows which dollars come from where.
Do words, not numbers.
So are there any other questions or comments?
Well, my hope, it'd be interesting to see, hopefully the city council, I mean, and again, we need to rely on them to do this because they should make that determination. And then if they do, my hope is, because this sales tax money, as I understand it, it's just kind of sitting there right now.
There have been portions of it that have been used over the last few years.
Yeah, it's time it gets used for what it was voted on. And my personal hope would be, we do this, and it's approved by the city council, that, I know it won't happen overnight, but we see a visible, recognizable change in our downtown corridor as far as its appearance, its welcoming to new businesses, and the establishment, so, because that's what this money was for. So that's my hope, that it finally gets used for that, and we see that visible difference in the downtown corridor, attracting, because this is money for everybody in the city of Pryor, so hopefully that happens.
I just wanted to make a comment really quick about, it does say writing grants on behalf of the EDTA, but I know like for the TSET grant, they had required a wellness policy, and that's stuff that like the city of Pryor has, but not necessarily the EDTA has. So I don't know if we need to include the city of Pryor and EDTA, or if it's equivalent. All right,
I think it'd be separate.
okay. So do we need to note that we need to add the city of Pryor in there?
Well, City of Pryor's not gonna be party to this agreement.
Right.
The only way they're a part of it is they're approving the spending of that sales tax money for these purposes.
So when Jenny goes to write grants and they ask who's the organization applying for this grant, she would then put the EDTA? 'Cause-
Well,
Yes.
but we benefit the city of Pryor.
Yeah.
So this is a beneficiary trust, and so we could say the EDTA for the benefit of the city
Okay.
of Pryor.
Because the city of Pryor is the beneficiary of this trust.
Right, okay,
I think we can work that out as we encounter it.
I
Okay.
think so too. I won't argue with three attorneys in the room. so.
right, no kidding. And then
Scott and I will sit over here and be quiet.
I also have a quick question about the EDTA loan and grant program. I know that we had developed a little bit of that with when we had dealt with the ball organizations, but there are other things that are gonna have to come into play, like us creating deadlines for that grant, how many times a year we're offering it, so do we have a timeline of when we can set that up so
We do not.
Jenny can be prepared?
That is just something that is in here, that is something that will come in the future.
Okay,
And when it does, it will involve Main Street
Okay.
administrating and probably awarding
okay,
those grants and loans.
okay. So we'll probably meet about those details at a
We will
future-
have to meet about those
Right,
details
right.
later because the program hasn't been created.
Right, okay.
Any other questions or comments? If not,
I
The
make
next
a
item.
motion that we
Approve
Enter
of
into
the changes that the
Yeah,
lump
subject-
sums made at the end of the year.
subject to the changes that have been discussed.
Okay.
okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Ms. Darla, if you will call the roll, please.
Sorrell,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Dirk,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes. Okay, our next item is discussion and possible action regarding requesting funds from the city council from Fund 68, October 31st, 2022, fund balance $271,636.92, in the amount of $55,000 for fiscal year 2022-2023, for funding of an MOA between EDTA and Pryor Main Street for services to be performed by Pryor Main Street in connection with economic development in the Main Street corridor.
So move.
Second.
Okay, Darla, if you'd call the roll.
Williams,
Yes.
Dirk,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Sorrell.
Yes.
Okay, our next item is discussion and possible action regarding approving a one-to-one matching grant, Cherokee Nation $25,000 and EDTA $25,000 for the Lake Area Softball Association. If approved, this grant would place Cherokee Nation and EDTA as partners in funding the Pryor Creek softball fields improvements that serve Pryor Creek, Mays County, and Cherokee citizens via the Lake Area Softball Association. I will point out that Canberra would have been here, but she is out of town. She has sent me information and sent Mayor information, so we can both speak on her behalf with this. And Danny Callison is here with the Cherokee Nation. But what this is, they have an opportunity to obtain a Jock Mayor grant for $25,000 matching. And to match that, EDTA would need to provide $25,000 and Cherokee Nation would need to provide $25,000. Their plan is to redo all of the fencing at the softball association. And Mayor, do you have any other?
Yes, I mean, not only fencing, but restrooms, concessions, backstop, playing field, observation stands, any of those items that they would be able to work on with this money. They have quotes to replace fence, and that is their main thrust with these monies, but they will perhaps have monies left over. We're not sure about that yet. Also, Canberra could not be here today, but we do have her phone number, and if we need to contact her via phone, I think that would be appropriate if we have any questions for her or anything that we would like to ask her about any of this.
I have a question. I kind of reviewed the application. So is the city of Pryor supposed to be the applicant, or is the softball association to be the applicant on the Cherokee application?
My term was that Councilman Chophouse, which couldn't be here today, she has half the Pryor. We're gonna give the 25,000 with the matching from the city, whichever way it has, and the MOA is gonna be necessary for that to take place so that the money's actually spent on infrastructure and not just used to spend on their day-to-day process. And my understanding was that she needed a letter from the Cherokee Nation, a letter from Pryor to go through the Jock Mayer Foundation, because they're holding off to approve their grants until they get these two matching letters.
So the EDTA is gonna put 25,000, or that's the proposal, put 25,000 in, okay? And the Cherokees are gonna put 25,000 in. But who is the applicant on the Cherokee grant application? Because what I've seen so far indicates that the city of Pryor is the applicant to receive the grant from the Cherokee Nation.
I donated 2,500 during their season, and their grant came from their Green Country Association out of their W-9. We can't donate out of W-9, so that's where that came through with them. So I have no idea, that's why I'm here.
I think that since EDTA is the entity that's being asked to put the 25,000 up, the MOA would have to be between, or the grant would have to be between the EDTA and Cherokee Nation. I don't think it will involve the city.
So you think the Cherokee Nation grant application, you know what I'm talking about? We're submitting an application to the Cherokee Nation for 25,000. Is that to come from the EDTA?
So I believe that should come from the EDTA. Yes, it should come from EDTA to the Cherokee Nation. Cherokee Nation can award that, those monies to the city via the EDTA, or the EDTA via the city, however that happens. But I think that EDTA needs to be the one that receives the money. That clears the path, EDTA and working with Cherokee Nation toward the benefit of the softball association, which is what the intent is.
So does the softball association then take the two letters, and the Jock Mayer application come from the softball association?
Yeah, I asked Canberra if this application would serve as the letter, and she said she thought that it would, that this application would serve as a letter to the chair to prove to Jock Mayer Foundation that the process was on the up and up.
The Tribal Council does have a lawyer that would be able to give them the letter, if they needed the letter, to go through that way, because it is coming out of her and I's funds that we are awarded. So with that said, either way you want to go, it's just the application is in a process that has to be done before we can award the money. And I think it's 2 pages, Mr. Ritchie, is that what you've got?
It's a really short application.
Yeah. It used to be 30 pages long, and they shortened it in the last 6 months, I think it is.
It's COVID money, right? Cherokee
Part of it
COVID.
is, part of it, I have money that, like any other government entity has to, be spent in certain ways. I have infrastructure money, this comes out of the chief's office, which is called community projects. Community partners is what it comes out of.
There's an item on the application that says
It is COVID.
other federal COVID-19 relief funding. Has this organization received any other federal COVID-19 relief funding? The city of Pryor has, EDTA is not.
Right. And what I can do is give you Ms. Terry Montgomery, which is the chief's executive assistant's number. The tribe's kind of halfway shut down now today because it's been Thanksgiving week, but a lot of vacation. But I will give you guys the number if you'd like, and you can contact her.
I think she's on that application. I think that's.
Yeah,
the person I tried.
her name and number is on that
I tried to
application.
call her yesterday and didn't hear back. But The thing that I saw in that application is it was filled out where the city of Pryor was the applicant. And then further down, it has this question, well, has the applicant received COVID money previously? And that kind of threw up a caution flag to me that that might not be an eligible thing for the tribe to do, would be to use COVID money and give it to the city who'd already received COVID money.
So, Danny, does softball not need to just apply directly to the nation?
That's fine. They can, and Kim is right, we cannot match COVID money with COVID money on a grant.
So
I do know that for a fact because.
So we're just awarding 25,000 as a matching grant.
I think we're out of that.
Under the assumption that Cherokee Nation is going to award 25 to softball and that Jock Mayer is going to award 25. And if one of those other two don't provide their funds, then we're not providing ours, correct?
Okay, I'm even,
More confused?
yeah, and I'll admit, I'm easily confused, and I'm really confused right now. My understanding, and that's why we had a special meeting, and that's why I'd like, if this is, my understanding, I thought that the softball association had made an application to the Mayor Foundation for money, and that the Mayor Foundation was willing to award that if they had matching funds, which then fell upon, they looked to the Cherokee Nation to get 25,000 to match, and they looked to us to get 25,000 to match, which I would assume that if they had the 50,000, Mayor Foundation was then going to give them $50,000 to match that. And what I was led to believe was that we had to have a special meeting because the Mayor Foundation needed to know this by Friday, or this whole thing was going to go away.
Yeah, that's what was communicated to me by the softball association,
Okay.
that they needed to have an answer on this application by Friday.
Okay, so the application is from the softball, Green Country Softball to the Mayor Foundation. I mean, I haven't seen the application. Is that what it is?
I haven't seen that one.
Which one did you see?
Cherokee,
The application from who to who?
City Pryor was
To who?
applying to the Cherokees.
Why would we apply? Why would
I think it should be agreed.
So I think it ought to be,
Softball asking them for help and
Yeah.
asking us for help.
I think that's the safest way to.
And my question becomes, and Lord knows, they need this help. You know, the organizations like softball and soccer and parks, and all of them were promised these things from a bond issue from several years ago that was never going to happen. And, you know, we're trying to, but also it's a little bit disconcerting to me if, and this is not a knock against softball or anybody, but it's a little disconcerting that we hear, well, we need an answer by Friday, and so if you don't do this, it doesn't happen. Well, then somebody's coming and asking, putting us in a corner to ask for $25,000 that we've received a total of $100,000 from the general fund in the last 2 years. This is 25% of what we received. I mean, I almost feel like we're being put into a corner a little bit. I want to help, but it's also a little bit disconcerting about, well, you know, because if we don't, we're the bad guys. And now I'm hearing all this confusion. Who's the application for? Who's it supposed to be coming from? Who's it being paid to? And what kind of timeline are we under? And if somebody's making applications to other organizations that they'd like to see our help, it would be nice to have something a little bit more advanced than Tuesday before Friday. If you don't give it to me, we lose everything.
I will say on softball's behalf, I don't think that was their intention, and they were the ones that found themselves in this corner. They made the legitimate application to Jock Mayer, partly because we told them, hey, we provided you with 5,000. If you want to see more of this, we need to see you apply to Jock Mayer. Jock Mayer then came back, and I wasn't at the meeting, so I don't know the details, and said, hey, we think this has merit, but you have to have 2 letters to match the other 25 apiece, or our time period ends Friday, and we've got to have an answer by then, or we go to the next person.
Oh, I understand.
So I think a lot of things put it in this corner. I don't
Well,
know.
I understand, I'm not, but it's just a little bit, I mean, I'm just, my observation is this is not necessarily the way. I mean, I'm not saying I'm against this, I'm not saying I don't want to help them, I'm not saying I'm not willing to help them if we can't, but if for future use, This is not the best way to be put in a position every time to be cough up $25,000 to somebody because, and pretty soon the money we have from the general fund is gone.
Well, that's where Jenny's gonna be successful in getting some more grants.
Look at that face. Look how successful she's.
In defense of the Cherokee Nation, Mayor Lees and I had this conversation 6 months ago.
Correct.
So he did not pass it on, and I don't know what the EBT is, to be real honest with you. I got no idea, but it's not down my deal. I just told him that he passed it on to Adam. So Adam and I have had 2 conversations. So the point was that I don't mind, and I was gonna put 25,000 into the baseball as well.
It just, all of this time period kind of got into a crunch because of some time periods that nobody knew we were under, with one of the entities saying, hey, we're willing to do it, but we've got this date.
So-
And then that triggered some calls, so here we are today.
It's not an unusual situation with grant applications to be down to the wire, but it's really not as complicated as maybe we're saying. I mean, the application is from the Softball Association to the Jock Mayor. They've made an application to you guys for 25. So really, the only question mark was, does softball need to be asking for the 25 from the Cherokees?
Well, I
And the
understand
answer
that,
seems
but
to be
it is a little-
yes.
It is a little bit of coming to us and saying, and again, I'm not blaming softball, I mean, they're trying to do the best, they're out there hustling, trying to get stuff done because they were promised stuff from the city a long time ago, and we knew it was never gonna happen. But it's just a little bit bothersome that as a trust member, that we hear about this at the last minute, we hear about it at the last minute, putting us almost in a corner. It's like, if you don't give the 25, this isn't gonna happen. Well, then suddenly whose fault does it become? It becomes ours. I'm just saying, I don't like that.
Well, all we can control is
Is us.
the trust authority. And if the agenda item is the trust authority willing to give them $25,000, conditioned upon them getting a grant from the Cherokee Nation and a grant from the Mayor Foundation, I move that point.
Okay, so there's a motion. Do we have a second?
I will second that, so now we have further discussion.
Okay.
So again, I agree with Daryl. I mean, I don't mind doing this, I just don't quite like the way it's happening. If people want to blame me for saying that, go for it. But I just don't think it's a good way to continue to do business in the future. Be nice to have a little bit more advance notice on what's going on and what people are asking and expecting from us. But then, Daryl, I think Daryl's motion is extremely important. This is conditioned on $25,000 absolutely coming from the Cherokee Nation, and then the final award from the Mayor Foundation.
How much was that award from the Mayor Foundation, 25 or 50?
Yeah,
25.
That's a good question. Well, if it's matching,
So it's 25,
If they're
25,
matching
25?
Yeah, 25.
It's 25, 25, 25.
And are they gonna use the 5 that we gave them previously? towards
Yes.
this as well?
No,
They're using
that's a
their own
separate
money.
project.
so they're not matching 50,000?
No.
They're seeing our 25 and
I guess
raising
so.
it.
So basically, they're getting 75,000 to do improvements out there, which is really needed.
And I have copies
Pretty
of the quotes for the fencing, and it's 67,000.
So the Mayor Foundation's not giving their 25 unless $50,000 comes from other sources?
Yes.
Wow, must be room on that.
And I
Fort
didn't
Myers
know the
County.
mayor was even involved.
Yeah.
Fort Myers County, yeah.
Yeah, we didn't,
Not sure.
we
I
didn't,
thought this was between the city and I've been visiting with that, and so, I mean,
Yeah.
that was the only deal.
yeah, the only reason we're trying to get some sudden things done here is because of what we heard from the Softball Association and their application to the Mayor Foundation.
And the EDTA saying we were willing to step out, be a part of things, and help facilitate transactions between the Cherokee Nation or Main Street, the Chamber of Commerce. I do think the further we go down this path, the more we're going to see the EDTA having to do special meetings, having to get involved, because we have to fit in between so many other organizations. But before we go on, would you call the roll on that?
Well, wait a
item?
minute, wait a minute. I really agree with that. That's what we want to do, and we will continue to do that. It just in the future, it'd be like us to have better information with much more advance notice, and so that we have some say in the amount we're willing to fund, as opposed to somebody else coming to us and saying, this is what you're paying us. And quite frankly, I'm just saying, that's what it feels like. And I think if that happens, we run out of money in a hurry. You know, we may have gotten checks, but that doesn't mean we have enough money in the checkbook.
Oh, I would disagree. You should see overdraft reports.
Well, if it's with a certain bank, that might work.
So on to calling the roll.
But anyway, that's my point. I mean, you know, we're willing to do it, but not have people come and tell us all the time, well, this is what you gotta pay.
Before we call the roll, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to recognize the initiative of the Cherokee Nation in that 6 months ago. He talks to me, and I talk to him. I talk to our city attorney. We try to get our city attorney to talk to the Cherokee city attorney. So we've been trying to put this together for quite a long time. I'd like to speak that I can't tell you how much I appreciate the Cherokee Nation in taking the initiative where they know that we have a need. And Danny, I really appreciate that. And I wish that Ms. Shotpouch was here, that I could express that to her that way as well. So very, very much.
I appreciate we can do that.
Cherokee Nation does wonderful things, and I'm not saying that. I mean, unlike other politicians or people in the state of Oklahoma, I do not get in a fight with the Cherokee Nation. I appreciate what you do. You do wonderful things. You do great things for education, and we appreciate that.
Well, I would just like this board to realize that if we don't have any skin in this game, they're not gonna have any skin in this game.
That's true.
100%.
So.
That's true.
I would just like to know how much skin it's gonna be.
Right, how much skin we're giving up.
We get to make a decision on how much skin we're giving.
Right.
And I think we should say
Softball
that.
went out and got other funds, matched these funds. I mean, we couldn't have done the whole thing. We couldn't have done that. So anytime you can get a return on your investment, or.
It's called OPM, other people's money.
Yeah, exactly. And again, I mean, guys, don't get me, I'm not questioning it. It's just, I would like to be able to be involved in how much skin we're gonna give, and somebody coming in and tell us how much we are going to give.
I don't want to push your vote back in, but who do we contact when we have these projects? Do we come to Adam?
Go with Adam, yeah, and say,
Okay.
what can you guys
We do
do?
expect, the nation always has paper involved, because we wanted to make, matter of fact, I'll give you a good example. Locust Grove has had money donated to them. If they don't do what the money was donated for, it comes back to the nation. Because I'm not just giving out money for those folks just to spend for, you know, their daily routine. So with that said, I guess we come through you guys, and you guys will get the MOA instead of the city. That's where we'll go with that.
It depends, but yes,
Yeah,
that
on
would
the
be
project.
that would be a starting point with me or with Mayor to get it going. This one, again, it kind of became what it is today because of a timeline that nobody else knew about. So.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. I think that's the lesson for us, so the timelines get cleaned up, and we get more involved in the beginning, so we have input of what we can actually provide, because if this happens all the time, again, you know, check over, only covers so much, you know? I mean, so, anyway.
I vote yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Sordahl,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Okay, our next item, discussion and possible action regarding the creation of a social media presence, Facebook and/or Twitter and/or Snapchat, and the use of those outlets for the promotion of economic development in Pryor Creek, updating the public on economic development and activity in Pryor Creek and on the activities of the E EDTA.
That's what we're giving $85,000 to Main Street for.
Partly, but we also need something that says E EDTA.
I love this idea. I am curious though who will manage it.
Can't we just have a drop down on the City of Pryor's website?
Nobody
for
visits
EDTA?
websites.
Daryl,
I do.
Daryl, can you?
One person visits
Can
websites.
you do the Snapchat?
I do TikTok.
Oh, you do TikTok?
I'm not relevant in this, I know everyone I know, but so many times, especially with people around my age that live here, We wish that we had some kind of social media that was real, true, accurate, all the time, information, unbiased, that we could just go to and read it straight from the source.
You're
You
dreaming.
know
Wake
you got
up,
complaints
Jimmy.
of Mace County. The complaints of Mace County.
That is unbiased.
People my age want that same thing.
Well, or the Chamber's website. How about the Chamber's website?
So I just, obviously, most of you know that effective first of the year, I'll be taking over Barbara's position at the Chamber. So that's one of the visions that I have is for, not only for all of these groups to come together to work together on specific projects, whatever it may be for the economic development of this city. I think with the Chamber and all of us working together, I like the idea of forming this. And I, representing the Chamber, would be available to help manage that as well.
It will not be a one-person management with, I mean, you can speak to this too, but with Facebook, it's easy to have multiple administrators and multiple postings and multiple ways in which you manage it. So the easiest way is you have a group of administrators that make the posts, the other administrators see it, you see your comments, you live with your comments, you don't delete the comments. Unless they're,
You can hide some of them.
yeah, you can hide some of them, but careful with deletion. But that's the agenda item, is to create the Facebook page and move forward.
So we need to curate our media. And we're talking about a page that is solely for the EDTA.
For the EDTA.
Because I think it should be.
This needs further study.
Do we need to
We're
get
just
Elon
talking-
in to
are
talk
we
about
just-
Twitter, or?
Are we just talking?
Yeah, I
I
mean,
mean, obviously he's,
We're just
I
talking
think we
about
all need to look for Daryl's Twitter account.
TikTok.
TikTok, oh.
I would say,
TikTok famous.
Mr. Chairman, I would say that if we have dinosaurs trying to manage it, that's probably not going to be successful. So the superintending this project, I think is important, how we decide we're going to do that. So,
I mean, so are you just looking for permission from the trust to
Create a Facebook page.
create a Facebook? I mean, we can limit it
That's
to
it.
that right now and
If-
see where we go.
No, nobody under 40 looks at Facebook.
Oh, I'm
Still on
over 40.
MySpace.
Huh?
I'm still on MySpace, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Baby steps, baby steps.
I mean, I don't even like messing with my email, so,
Yeah.
I mean,
I've heard you try to put a phone on speaker, so.
yeah, and I can't. I can't. Yeah, Phyllis, can you put this on speaker?
So there's the motion.
Who
Or
made the motion?
I'm sorry, there's the item for action. We need a motion.
So if we
I think it's
do
gonna
this,
die
just
for
to establish a Facebook presence right now, regardless of what age group we're addressing, who's gonna create the Facebook page, Mr.
I will
Chairman?
create the Facebook page.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right,
Well,
I'll make
then
that
I'll-
motion.
There's a
I'll
motion.
make that motion.
Second.
I'm gonna see this, go ahead.
Yeah.
We got a motion, who seconds?
I'll second it.
Ms. Darla, if you'll create, or if you'll call the roll.
Moore.
I'm
Moore.
pondering.
He's sitting here looking at TikTok, he doesn't have.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Miller,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Sordahl,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Dirk.
Yes.
Okay, now we need a motion to adjourn, unless we're going to discuss that.
So moved.
Didn't have to ponder that, but yes.
Is Scott going to be singing on your Facebook
Second.
page?
100%.
This is Black Widow.
Okay.
OPP.
Yeah, that was,
Yes.
show it 7-0, 7-0.
All in favor?
Or 6-0,
Aye.
whoever's.
Thank you, guys.